Look at that. Okay, so we'll just get her nice and bright so that you can see me, and I will blind myself because I am one of those people whose screen is always at the darkest. It's always here. It's always at the darkest. As I said, it's the middle of the night. I'm on an opposite schedule. I woke up at like sometime 9-10 p.m. and everyone else in the house is asleep, understandably. So I do not want to be up making a ton of noise, and when I am on an opposite schedule like this, you guys know because I always make videos when I'm on an opposite schedule, because what else is there to do? And also I'm lonely. Also I get just the tiniest bit sad, the tiniest bit, because I'm alone, and because usually I'm on an opposite schedule because I don't feel good, or because I didn't feel good and I had a big flare and it made me either sleep too much or not sleep enough, and it just flips my schedule upside down on its head, which makes me feel like I'm flipped upside down on my head as a person. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, so I'm a little bit sad, and what do I do when I'm sad? I think about all the wonderful things that I love in the world, and right now that's horses. And I like how I say that, like right now, like it's a phase, like I haven't always been like this, but I haven't technically, because when I got really sick this last time, even though I had a horse that overlapped with how sick I was when I'm not even explaining this right. At the sickest time of my life, I still had a horse, but at the same time, I felt like I was falling out of any horse girl behaviors or feelings because of how bad I felt. And also, it's like, how am I supposed to be a horse girl? There were times where I literally couldn't sit up, I couldn't walk, I couldn't stand. So it's like, what was I going to be doing with a horse? Although, when I did get a little bit better, I did do groundwork. A lot of people know horses because you ride them, and it's very fun. I like to ride horses, but not everyone rides horses, and not all horses are rideable. And just like people, horses get old, they get sick, they get injured. So even if it is a rideable horse, they might not be rideable all the time. Which all the people, all the equestrians, and all the horse trainers and riding instructors, all those people, they do suggest doing groundwork and fun things like that with your horse, because it's bonding, and because it can also like create good manners. Like there's benefits, right? And all this time I was like, not for me. I'm not a groundwork kind of girl. Like I just want to get on my horsey and ride right off to the sunset, right on the trails. Like come on, who doesn't want a little cowboy or a cowgirl era? But you know, they said to do it, and so I did do it, and let me tell you, they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong. I had a fantastic time doing groundwork. And you know what else? I have to tell you this too. I was talking to my farrier one day, and I was talking a little bit about some of my health problems and different things, and he was like, you know what you need? I was like, what? He was like, you need a horse that lays down. And I was like, do I really need that? And he was saying, like, if you get a horse that lays down, then you can get on the horse, and then the horse can get up, and vice versa. The horse can lay down, you can get off the horse. So it's a little bit easier to get on and off. Which there's a couple different ways to get on and off, and of course there's ways to get on and off a horse that are a little bit more accessible. Anyways, I thought that I would sit here and dream about buying a horse with you. So first of all, you might be like, how are you gonna buy a horse? How do you think that's gonna go down? There's several ways you can buy a horse, of course. You can go to auctions. You can buy from places on the internet like Craigslist or other places that they have ads. You can use the method of word of mouth, which might be really great. So if you know or have a riding instructor from taking riding lessons, then you can go, okay, I'm looking for a horse, and they can kind of help and guide you to some of those things. You can buy from breeders. You can buy from horse rescues. So there's lots of options, and I'm sure I'm missing a few. But for me, because I am disabled and looking for a very specific horse, and an experienced horse, and a horse that's in decent condition, so it's lower maintenance for a longer time, I'm gonna skip going to an auction, because even though you can find great diamonds in the rough, and that one person's trash is another person's treasure, it can be harder to get background, and a lot of times, most times, from what I hear, almost every time, you cannot do any sort of vet checks, which are great to double check that nobody is lying about something with the horse horse, or trying to drug the horse and make the horse seem a lot nicer and better and mild-tempered than the horse really is. We do not like catfish. No, we do not. Horse rescue could be an option, especially nowadays, because so many people have surrendered the horses because of where they are in life right now, more than normal. So you could probably find a lot more diamonds and treasures at the horse rescues, and they're, from what I hear, pretty full. Now, here's another thing with me and my disability, in case you haven't heard me complain. I mean, just state some facts about how I am not gonna just get in a car for no reason, because cars can be one of my biggest triggers. I almost said treasures. That's definitely not what I meant. Can be one of my biggest triggers for some of my worst episodes. And there are plenty of times in my life where that wasn't so. I used to do road trips. I've gone and driven like halfway across the country and back. Like, if things were different, I would be all up into getting into a car. But because that's a thing, and because I'm still not at my best right now, and we're talking about buying a horse right now, okay? We're looking at ads together right now. Even though I don't have the money or the circumstances to do that right here, right now, we're still gonna pretend we do. So I don't really want to go driving. My first horse that I got, I drove, I think, over 3 hours to go see and sit on her, and then 3 hours home. And that was a lot for me at the time. I think it would be a lot for me now, and I don't think it's necessarily necessary. I don't know. Am I too old? Am I too much of a homebody? I don't know. I want the convenience of not having to drive, not to mention that by the time I get somewhere, it is not guaranteed, and most likely I am exhausted. I'm out of it. It took everything out of me to get dressed and get ready to go be with people and to talk to them and ask them questions and to do the whole, like, looking at a horse process with them. And I remember one time I went somewhere, this was kind of cool. I found somewhere that was like within 5 minutes of where I lived, which is very rare, I think. For me anyways, very rare. I don't usually see horses in my area. And you might be like, well, because you don't really look that often. I do, embarrassingly. It's a secret. Do not tell anybody. I am constantly looking for a horse, even though I'm not gonna buy one right now. But I don't like reach out to people and waste their time. I'm not that rude. I'm not that kind of girl. So I found a horse within 5 minutes of me, and it was my dream. My dream horse is like paint. You know, it's like almost like your classic cow look. I'll show you later on. It was a really sweet horse, big and stocky. Like, I like him because I'm a solid girl, and I like to have other people ride with me, and I want to be able to put my husband and my dad and all those kinds of people on my horse. So I like to just have a big and stocky horse. Anyways, so I go and see the horse, and the people super nice. They had a whole bunch of really cool horses, and they had all these little, I think they're called healers, the blue healers or whatever, those dogs, and they were so well trained, and she was showing us tricks, and I did all my stuff. I did some of my groundwork and whatever. They had someone there to ride the horse first, that was familiar with the horse, and then I could ride afterwards and all that stuff. It was a great experience, except that it was a little bit cold out, and please say you know, that me and my body's inability to keep its temperature at a proper degree is not there. It's non-existent. So we were out there for like, I don't know, let's say we were out there for like an hour. I was shaking. It felt like my bones, my veins, my muscles, the blood and cells inside me, ew, I know, I'm sorry, was shaking. I was shaking to my core. I was so cold. I was so desperate to get out of there. I was losing my mind. My ability to use my muscles was very compromised, which is important when you're sitting on top of a 1-ton animal. Actually, is it a 1 ton or half a ton? Is a ton 2,000 pounds or 1,000? It's 2,000, right? Let me Google it real quick. Okay, yeah, a ton is 2,000 pounds, so a half a ton. Ton and a half. I don't know. was not too long before I ended up in the hospital and on my bed and in a really bad place for a while. So I'm really glad I didn't end up getting that horse. So the moral of the story is I'm not completely tied to the idea of me going and physically seeing the horse myself before I buy it. I would recommend it if you can, but for me, because it's not my first experience looking at a horse and buying a horse, and because I'm not looking for a horse that's a performance horse, and because by the time I get there, there's a good chance I will not be in a good place to look at it anyways, I'm not into it. You can also have like sometimes riding instructors or people like that will have a service where they will go and look at a horse with you or for you to check it out and see, you know, what kind of horse it is. And if you've been working with a riding instructor, then they know what kind of horse that you need a lot of times better than you do. So one of my brilliant ideas is to I'm sorry, I do have brilliant ideas. Let's not laugh at that self. One of my brilliant ideas is to buy a horse online from a reputable person that sells them. There are several people and companies that are getting into selling horses online. There's one company that I've had my eye on for a couple of years, and they sell a lot of horses, which you will hear a lot of cons about buying from a horse trader. However, things in general in life are heading towards being more and more on the internet and more digital and more accessible because of it, and I personally find that amazing and appreciate it, and I will take it for what it is. So that means we get to look at videos of horses together. Okay, this horse here is a gaited horse, which I like gaited horses. She's showing us that, oh yeah, he picks up his feet, he's pretty easy. He looks like that paint vibe where he's black and white, love that. And then she's gonna show what it's like saddling him. A lot of horses will raise their head when you saddle them, which is not that big of a deal, but he does not seem bothered by it. Alright, now she's gonna put on the saddle. Still just fine. And you see that little leg in the back, it's just kind of resting. He doesn't look super agitated or anything. His eyes, when they're, oh, but look at him, he just kind of walked away. Oh, don't mind me not having my iPad charged. Okay, so him walking away, and you see him being tied is what stopped him from walking away, and he's not acting foolish or anything, but he is definitely like reacting to something. Now this is not super crazy, but for me, who is easily knocked off balance, and with a horse like this, can easily be run over, and I don't have as quick of reflexes as I used to back in the day, I'm not gonna want that. So also in the notes when we read about this, they suggest a rider who comes off as more confident, and because of my heart rate going up and down more dramatically, which is, you know, a health thing, it doesn't really matter how stressed or not stressed I am or how relaxed I am, my heart rate will go up and down more dramatically. I do not ride like someone who is confident to a horse. They feel that and hear that and they're like, what's going on? And it can freak them out. So any horse that says that or they recommend having a confident rider with, I do not consider a good option for me as a rule. So let's move on to another one. Okay, now we're looking at this horse. They're calling this horse buckskin, which I'm pretty sure refers to coloring. I don't know. She's picking up all the feet. Seems pretty easy. He doesn't seem to be bothered by anything. We're not seeing any whites in his eyes, which when you see white in the eyes of a horse, it means like usually that they're a little bit more scared, you know, like they're up in arms, they're freaked out a little bit and they're widening their eyes. So it's just one of the things you can kind of look for. She's put on the saddle, pad in the saddle, nothing crazy. He looks like he's really just trying to get to the hay, and that is really his only concern. That's kind of funny. But even though he's kind of distracted and wants that, also looks like every time that she's, moving the saddle, putting something on, or when she picked up his feet, he immediately turned his attention to her. So he's not just completely thinking, oh, I need to get to the food or I need to move whatever. When she is touching, he's going, oh, where are you? What do you want? Let me listen and do whatever that you want me to do, which I think is really good. So, just like people or anyone else, horses can get distracted. Just like me, I get distracted 24/7. I also just go off into la la land all the time, mid-sentence, mid-conversation. People will be like, hello, hello. Anyways, but it's really good to be able to get their attention back extremely easily, and that they don't overreact or forget that you're there and get spooked or scared and jump a little bit. So far nothing like that do we see, and she completely saddled him. His feet did not move from where he was, and that's great. His head is going down really easy. She's been able to move him very easily despite him being extremely interested in just chowing down, which, same. I'm easily distracted by food. His sweet demeanor. Look at how easy it was for her to put that bridle on him. Now this is the money maker. You see this? What did I tell you earlier about the farrier and what he said? So this horse gets down for saddling, which you can have a horse lay down, not for saddling. But this horse specifically gets down and will get back up for saddling, which, to be fair, I would also say requires a lot of more strength for you as a person to hang on from that. You might be like, oh, it's so much easier to get on that way, but it's actually quite, you need some muscles. Now, when he stood up, he did not move at all until she said, all right, let's go, which is another thing, because a lot of times, this is also just, a lot of horses can do this, a lot of horses do, a lot of horses don't, you get the picture. But a lot of horses, when you sit on them, they will just start to move right away. They will just walk off like, okay, you're on here, and so let's go. I know you're on here to go, so let's go. But for someone like me, or for children, or for really anybody, it's better to be able to sit down and get adjusted. It's better for me to breathe for a second and make sure that the right muscles are activated and the wrong muscles that could be, cramped and stuck aren't cramped and stuck. So it's good for me to have a second before we go. Alright, now she's gonna show the horse at the 3 different gaits. So walking, trotting, and cantering. And things we can look at is how low is it the fetlock or the pasterns? Basically that little ankle part of right above the hoof. You want to look to see how far down that goes. So if it goes down really far towards the ground, that's kind of like it dropping towards the ground a lot, then that could be something of concern. Could be because of age, or something like that, lack of muscle. Could be a couple of different things, but it's something to look out for. Another thing that we can look at is how the horse carries its head and neck as she rides at all 3 different gaits. But we're going to go ahead and fast forward that she also takes this horse on an obstacle course. Don't you love all the rhyming? Of course you do. Okay, so let's go ahead and fast forward to that. I would like to say, with everything that it goes through, it really looks unbothered, which we love, and also looks like it's a windy day. This is good, him going over these little pole things, because you get to see how much this horse thinks about its feet and isn't clumsy or trips over things, because obviously as a horse trips and falls with you on it, girl, that is not good. Also, you want to see that it is aware and picks up its feet high enough to go over whatever it is. And kind of the same thing with this bridge. It looks like they're really thinking about how they get on and off the bridge and handle the different when the weight shifts in the middle of the bridge. So that's good. Now we see it going over a tarp. Tarps are a really big thing in the horse world. If you don't know, for some reason horses hate tarps and plastic bags and water bottles. They hate that kind of stuff. That's kind of annoying and important to know, because obviously, for me, I'm drinking all the time. He walks over the tarp just fine. That's great, because I'll be drinking out of some plastic water bottles sometimes, because even though I think It's great not to have plastic. I have a lot of glass water bottles. However, when you're riding a horse, that's another time that I'm like, don't have glass. I don't think it's the time. And you want to be able to drink it without getting bucked off. Next horse is another horse that I would buy immediately if I could. This horse is a little bit taller, so I like to ride a horse that's around 15 hands. This horse is around 16 hands, and she is brown, which would be my preferred not color to get. Brown and white or gray is what they call them, horses. However, look at this. You've got this horse on the other side of the fence. You see it? It's that like actual dark gray horse. It's probably an actual blue roan. But anyways, on the other side of the fence, feet away, acting a fool. And he tries to kick at her from that side of the fence. Look, foolishness. No! Are you kidding me? That's too much. But what did she do? She saw it. She felt all that foolishness in that big energy that he was giving, and whatever he was trying to say in horse language, like, get out of my way, you better not do this, hey, get out of here, what you doing? Whatever he was trying to say, she said, not today. So in the listing for this horse, they say that she is very experienced. She's an older horse, and she is just a very beginner-friendly, safe horse, which we love. With my issues, I feel like I'm never really at my best. So I like to say that I always ride like a beginner, because sometimes my position is off, and it's just because something's cramping up, or I don't have the body awareness or proprioception that I need to have, that, it's good and that most humans have. We love that this is a beginner-friendly horse for me, and because I also like to ride with my friends and family members, and I also want to have horses that are, somewhat safe and friendly for all my friends who have kids and their kids want to come pet my horse. Speaking of friends who have kids, I was a kid who had a friend with a horse, and that's how I got into horses. Overall, my family, my friends, my community of people, not horse people. So I got into horses because I was a kid that loved riding with my friend. My best friend had a horse, and that literally was the best time of my life. Now we're gonna look at this horse, who is a little bit shorter for me to ride, but would be perfect for all the other kids that I have in my life that might want to ride, or at least that's what the listing says. This is a carriage horse. Now, there are a lot of pros in my mind when it comes to a carriage horse. You think of like the Amish community, they use them kind of like instead of cars, and then there's people who use them for like work, like logging, so cutting down trees, and then there's people who use them in parades. Now, when it comes to parades and using a horse instead of a car, that means that they are on the roads with all sorts of a whole bunch of ruckus, other cars, people yelling, people beeping, cars going around them, all sorts of things. So it really desensitizes them, and they have to be able to stay calm and still pay attention to you, whoever's, the person that's directing them, where to go, when to stop, whatever, despite anything and everything else going on. So I think that already says a lot about a horse's personality, which I think is important if you're gonna have, younger people ride them. I just reiterate how it was such an amazing experience for me, and that I truly loved being able to ride as a young person, despite not being like within a horsey field in life, and my parents not buying me lessons when I was younger. That wasn't really an option. But still, to be able to have access and enjoy a horse that was safe enough for me was amazing, and I would love to be able to like pass that on in life, to be able to have horse or horses that are safe and friendly for kids to meet a horse or to pet a horse, like kids in my life, so that they can have some access and introduction to horse, which I'm not like a horse instructor or a riding instructor, but it's not day one for me. There are still things that I can teach and introduce little children to, or beginners to. I don't know if you can tell from this woman riding this horse, this is a small horse. I want to say it's 13 hands. Now, me and my height and my weight, I wouldn't really ride this horse on a trail, but if I had to, sometimes a horse has like like a mannerism or something that it just needs to get over, or you want to just double check that the horse is good and safe and feels right to ride that day, which I think is important and a great way to double check on horses, body and health and how they're feeling. It can be to do some groundwork or even to ride them just, in a circle or whatever, to look at their cues, like are they listening? That can be great because obviously horses can't talk and tell you what's right, and sometimes when they have really sweet demeanors, they don't show when they're in pain or things like that as easy, but when you're used to riding them and stuff, you can kind of feel it sometimes. So this is a horse that is big enough for me to get on and fix a bad mannerism or habit that they have really quick, or to just double check, and it's not going to be too strenuous for this horse. I wouldn't get on for a long period of time though, so that is what I would want. Also, if you're in the horse world, there is this whole saying and thing about like smaller horses, like miniatures and ponies, that they're crazy, and I told y'all I'm not out here trying to be with them crazy horses. Right now we're gonna look at this horse. Look at how beautiful. I believe it's like a Clydesdale draft mix, at least, if I remember correctly. Oh, that's what I was gonna say about the last horse, the shorter horse that I would get for kids when they come over, to be able to see and to sit on and be introduced to. That would be my dream and my purpose for having that horse, which I think is a great dream and a great purpose. And when I had my horse before, it was 15 hands, but I did have a couple of younger people come over and ride the horse or see the horse, and after that I was really like, no, for real, this really is like a big dream of mine, is to be able to have that and to do that and be available for that. Now, did you see that right there where the horse stepped forward towards the girl? If she wouldn't have moved out of the way, she could have got stepped on. Now, that's not the craziest thing in the world. I tend to get stepped on a lot because I'm clumsy and I don't move very fast. But it's not the greatest thing. It's not the greatest thing. And having a horse that's really respectful, because sometimes they'll step on you because they don't respect you and your space, but also just aware of how they're moving and how you're moving around them. They won't just like run into you or step on you. It's good to have a horse that doesn't step on you, or at least a horse that thinks twice about it before they do. Anyway, so as we see this horse moving, I do want you to take a nice look at its feet, or its hooves. You can see it has like, what are these things called? Oh my goodness. It has what's called feathers. So it has extra like hair around its hooves, which is very pretty. I think a lot of people recognize that when they see and think about Clydesdales. That's really cool. This horse has a beautiful mane, beautiful tail, beautiful everything. Is beautiful horse, but she's actually quite young. Feathers tend to be extra work, so you can shave them off if you want, which kind of is like, kind of defeats the purpose of having them. They're beautiful, but they can also hide and attract more like ticks and things like that. And then if you have a lot of like mud and stuff like that, it can get stuck in the hair and then give them like more mud fever stuff and things like that. I haven't experienced that, so I don't know how right I am about all of those things, but I do live where there's ticks. I'll tell you that for sure. I don't know if there's any place on this continent that doesn't have ticks, but if there is, let me know, because I will move there in a second. I have been covered with over 100 ticks before. When I was a child, I was playing out in the backyards, in the woods, whatever, as the grown-ups did, grown-up-y backyard work stuff, and they were doing all the yard things. And when I came in the next day, I was scratching and itching, and my mom was like, oh, you're covered in sea ticks, which is even worse because they're so tiny you can't see them. So I laid there for what felt like forever and hours as my mom picked them off one by one with tweezers, and she was like, yeah, I stopped counting like once we got like close to 100, and I was like, that's crazy. But since then, yeah, I've had plenty of ticks on me. Just rather not deal with them. They're a menace to society, if you ask me. So yeah, we're just gonna continue to watch how beautiful this horse is, and even though she is young, she is taking everything with stride, and she's got some good things going for her, so it seems in this video. But because of her age and lack of experience, well, more age sometimes comes with more experience, and sometimes there's young ones that have a lot of experience, but either either way, she seems to be like she's well trained, but doesn't necessarily have as much life experience as I would like her to have. I do like horses that have been lesson horses because they get to experience a lot of different kids and people, or even adults, that tend to be a little bit more hesitant and sloppy and even nervous and scared. And so they learn to be really tolerant, and they learn through those experiences what it's like to have different riders and to adjust to different riders on their backs. Different people have different bodies. They ride differently. Their muscles are different. And for me, with my body, I feel like sometimes my body feels like a different body from day to day. And I feel like I wouldn't be able to do the service. I feel like it would be a disservice coming from me to try to give that experience and to train if I'm having a hard moment or even an episode out of nowhere and I'm with the horse. I need to know that the horse is solid. I don't have to worry about that horse a lot while I'm going through a hard time. I don't want to be training a horse at the same time, because obviously that can be dangerous and scary for me. Might even be dangerous and scary for the horse. Anyways, there's several more horses to look at, and I didn't even show you like the kind of things that they ride out to tell you about the horse. And I certainly haven't told you about all of my stories about going to look at horses in the past. But anyways, if you want to come by anytime and watch horse videos with me, just let me know, because I do this on a regular basis. It makes me really happy to see all the cute little horsies and to be like, oh, I want to buy that one, I want to buy that one. It's like window shopping, I imagine. But instead of looking for like a dress, an outfit, a purse, I'm looking for like a half-ton animal. Half-ton, I know what that means now. I hope you guys are having a wonderful night, and that if you're up late in the middle of